Hi, everybody.
Hi, everyone.
I'm Staffan Åberg.
My name is Alixander Ansari. Can you all hear us well? Yes, someone raised their hand, so I'm assuming that you can hear us. Great. We will, first of all, take a brief overview of how large language models work. We're not going to be too technical about it. And then we'll move on to some hands-on demonstrations on how you can use them in your everyday work as software testers. We will take questions during this session, so please use the question and answers feature in Zoom. And you can also help upvote the questions that you like the most, that you want answered. We might not be able to answer all of your questions, but help us out by choosing the best questions. So let's get started, shall we? All right. So first of all, who are we? My name is Alixander Ansari. I have a background in computer engineering and electronics engineering. I've been working with quality assurance basically all of my career as a consultant within different industries. And most of my time now is spent with QA coaching, agile coaching, and as a consultant manager here at Kestit.
Yes, and I'm Staffan Åberg. I have a similar background as Alex. I've also worked in different QA roles and requirements and agile management. And now I also work as a consultant manager, and I also teach at vocational education, software testing education. And sometimes I take role as a test expert for various projects.
But who are Kestit? What do? We provide experts within various different areas within quality assurance. So we start all the way at the requirements phase and make sure that our customers build the right products. And then we move on to the testing phase and make sure that they have produced the right software and products. We do this by combining the skills of requirement engineers, UX designers, and everything that exists within testing, all the way from functional testing to automation and also electronics testing, test system engineering and penetration testing for security, and load testing and performance testing, etc. So we cover everything within the scope of testing. We are actually the biggest company within quality assurance in the entire world. We have offices in 7 different countries here in Europe and approximately 900 employees worldwide. But that's not what we're here to talk about. We are here to talk about what is AI.
Yes.
Yeah. So basically, this is a scare scenario that a lot of people get in their minds when they think about AI. But to be honest, when it comes to any type of technology, it doesn't matter whether it's AI or nuclear fission or any type of advanced technology. We can always use it for either good purposes or we could use it for more nefarious purposes. But when it comes to the AI technology, it's not really something new. How many of you have actually used before ChatGPT or any of these types of products that are new to the market now, used any type of AI or been involved in any type of training of AI? Please raise your hands now.
Yeah.
To be fair, I would assume that every one of you would raise your hands because we have been using AI products for a very long time. Everyone that has used a voice assistant, everyone that has used Google Translate, YouTube, Facebook, etc., has in some way or form been in contact with AI. And furthermore, you've also been training AI. These CAPTCHA products that when you log into a website or something that ask you to select the images that are traffic lights or select the images that are buses or whatever, these are actually used to train AI. Even the ones that use letters or numbers, it's always 2 pairs that you, it's always 1 pair of numbers and letters that you have to decipher. One is known from the AI that it is a number, it knows what number it is, but the other one is something that the AI didn't know before, so you're teaching it. So actually you've all been using AI in some way or form. But when it comes to the development of AI, we're in a very early stage. How many of you recognize this logotype? A few raise your hands. Yeah. This is Napster. Napster was the first really big music or file sharing product that launched. This was the product that was taken down by Metallica after they sued them. And this was the start of what would become Spotify. Daniel Ek, who started Spotify, was a big fan of Napster and the founders of Napster, but he had a dream to build something that was better. And this technology and the ways of using the internet and the services around it has changed the way that we consume media, all the way from just being pirating to being a completely legal streaming service, such as Spotify or Netflix or any type of streaming service that you might use today. We are at the same maturity level in AI right now. We're just taking the baby steps of what these large language models can become in the future. And the pace that we're accelerating this evolution in is a lot faster than previous, but it's quite difficult for us to understand what this might entail for our long-term future. But the best way to adopt this and make sure that we are developing this in the right direction is to start using it today and see how you interact with it, what its limitations are, and how to move forward with it. So what are these large language models? Let's start there. If you can see this image, pretend that this image is the entire information on the internet. And compare it to this next image. I'm going to switch between them once more. This is the first image, and this is the second image. Do you see any difference? I think there's barely any difference between them. But it's when you start zooming in on the details. This is a zoomed in version of the first one, and this is the second one. That's when you start seeing the differences. So basically, large language models read the entire internet and then compress them down to an abstracted form of what the information covers. This is one of the reasons why hallucination or false information can arise when you're using large language models, because there's a limitation in how much of the information that they actually retain in a detailed form and how much they're guessing. And guessing is actually part of the entire way that they work. It's a statistical model that just guesses the next word in a sentence based on what it's read before. So we have basically two types of LLMs today. We have base LLMs, which aren't very useful, and we have instruction-tuned LLMs. A base LLM could take, it's basically just something that predicts the next word on text training data. And then if you would give it an input like, once upon a time there was a unicorn, it would probably fill it in with something along the lines of, that lived in a magical forest filled with vibrant colors and sparkling streams. Because it's probably read something similar to this somewhere in its training data. However, if you would ask it, what is the capital of France? It would probably reply something along the lines of, what is the population of France? What's the currency of France? What's the largest city of France? Because this is the context that it has read that sentence in on the internet. So what they do instead, that they take this base LLM and teach it to reply with better answers by using upvoting or downvoting to teach it what is a better solution. So it tries to follow your instructions. This is a process called reinforced learning from human feedback, or RLHF. This is something that you might come across when you read about AI nowadays, but it's basically teaching the model what is a good answer and what is a bad answer. So in the case of what is the capital of France, this type of model would probably reply with the capital of France is Paris. So the big products that you have been using or are really hitting the market hard right now are three main ones. They are OpenAI's ChatGPT, we have Microsoft's Bing Chat, and we have GitHub's Copilot. All of these companies are owned by Microsoft in one way or another, but it's basically using the same large language models based on the GPT models developed by OpenAI, but with different implementations. But these are not the only products on the market, but we will cover most of these in our talk today. This is just a glimpse of what you can find on the market today. And this picture is really old, like it's 6 months old now. And this number of companies that have different AI-powered products grows every single day. And if you're thinking, well, now this is too far from my future, I'm not going to use this anytime soon. Well, think again, because Microsoft has already started running, deploying Copilot into Windows 11 as a built-in service in Windows 11. It's not allowed in the EU yet because of GDPR and other data privacy laws, but they're working on it. And it's been launched in the rest of the world as a preview beta for Windows 11. So if you're into the preview channel for Windows, you can access it. But that's not it. This is just one of the products that they are launching to basically, which everyone will have access to, whether they like it or not. Microsoft 365 Copilot will become a default part of the Microsoft 365 service. So if you have the Office package, this will be integrated into that service, where you can have something like a large language model like ChatGPT helping you in your everyday work in these Office packet programs. But it's not only Microsoft working with this. Google's building Bard that it's integrating into all of its workplace products. So Google Sheets, Google Docs, everything like that will have this integrated into it. Bard is also in open beta now, so you can sign up to try it as well. It's similar to ChatGPT, but it's not as fully fledged as ChatGPT is. And when it comes to code writing large language models, there's a large body of different products that can do different things. But basically, Copilot is the biggest one right now, but they have their drawbacks and strengths towards each other. So if you're really eager to run something on premises and be sure that your data is not transferred outside of your company, then there are solutions for that too. This brings us into the privacy and security talk. This is the biggest fear that companies have when it comes to using large language models. No one wants their proprietary data to leak outside the company. So all of these big companies who develop these types of products take data security and privacy extremely seriously. So for example, Microsoft is building in 365 Copilot into its entire ecosphere that runs Office 365. So if you are already running 365 services on your company, then Copilot will be inside your tenant. So it will access data inside your tenant and won't share it outside of your tenant. So basically, if you're safe with putting anything on SharePoint or Teams or sensitive data like that on Microsoft services today, you can be sure that 365 Copilot will give you the same level of security and privacy as the other Microsoft services. There are other services from Microsoft that don't do this. For example, Bing Chat, that's an external services outside of your tenant. Bing Chat Enterprise is also the same thing, but they take measures to ensure that you're not training the AI model with proprietary data if you choose to use those services. And that's the same thing with ChatGPT. If you use ChatGPT, there are options to switch off the model being trained on your data. So this can be addressed in most big products right now. So make sure that you and your organization are really clear on your AI guidelines and best practices in order to ensure that you don't share proprietary data in a way that you're not supposed to. So this will enable you to be able to ask questions to Copilot or something along the lines of it in a way that you can get answers based on all the information that your company has. There's also other things to consider when it comes to security or the ethics of AI. You need to be very transparent inside your company about using AI. Who's using it? Why are you using it? And you need to be aware of the answers that you get from the AI is not always true. The AI has biases, which is based on what it's been trained on. So you need to make sure that you actually check the facts and don't take it as an oracle, because it's not. It's far from that. You as human beings still need to be the oracles and check what is right and what is wrong. Because in the end, if something goes wrong, who will be responsible? Will it be the AI company who developed the model, or you as humans who interacted with it and maybe created something that was not intended? Or you might introduce defects in your product that were not intended. The other question is if we're replacing human labor with this type of technology. And our strong point of view is that we're not replacing human labor. We are
enhancing.
Enhancing is a good word for it. Yeah.
So you will get more stuff done for each tester or each developer in what you want to accomplish.
Exactly. So if a developer, for example, spends 6 of its 8 hours workday coding and 2 of the hours analyzing, those ratios will be switched. You might spend 2 hours coding and 6 hours analyzing code and analyzing your architecture and finding the best way to solve the problem, while getting even more code written in those 2 hours. So it's a matter of perspective on how we use these AI products that will actually change the way that we work. But how do you get started with this, Staffan?
Yes, good question. And both me and Alex, we've been using AI and ChatGPT more since it was launched a few months ago. So the first thing that happened for me is that I stopped using Google for learning stuff or getting knowledge about things. So basically right now I'm using ChatGPT many times a day, basically. And I would urge you, if you want to learn more about how to use ChatGPT, you should try to get the paid version of it. It has lost a lot of those hallucinations, and you get better and more clear answers. You don't need to work with the model that much to get the answer that you are expecting. So we have a few prompting tips here of how to get started and how to write these good prompts, because this is a new
skill that you need to develop.
Yeah, and there will people just working as prompt engineers in the future. So when we write these prompts, we should write clear and specific instructions. So if we can give the model a lot of information about what we want to accomplish, then the model can give us better answers. So more is more. And you still need to be specific, and you can give examples about tonality and form and structure. And also to provide examples is a good way of getting your message through to the model of how you want the answer to look like. So for example, if I want to enhance my CV, as you know, me and Alex, we have similar background, and probably his CV is a bit tad better than mine. So I can prompt Alex CV into the model, and then I can tell ChatGPT to write my CV so that it looks like Alex's, but with my experience. So probably I will level up my CV of doing this with ChatGPT. Other stuff we can do if we have more complex problems is that we give the model time to think. So we give the requirements instead of saying how it should solve something. So we let the model give an example of how to solve our requirements. And then we can ask for an overview, and then we try to, from that overview, go step by step to let it do the more details of that problem that we have asked for. So we don't ask for silver bullet solution like from the start. We do it as we would do with other humans. We break it down to smaller tasks, and then we solve each task. And then, of course, there are a lot of ways of how to actually write these prompts. But one way is to let the chatbot or the model to write their own prompts. So instead, give your requirements and what kind of prompts you are expecting, and then you can iterate, find that prompt that you're looking for. And another way is that you give the information about the other AI tools to, for example, to ChatGPT. So it will learn another AI tool, and then the ChatGPT can write the new prompts for you. And this is actually integrated in the new paid version for ChatGPT. So the image generator DALL-E is integrated now into ChatGPT, and ChatGPT will write the prompts for DALL-E. So we just ask ChatGPT to give us some kind of picture, and then it will ask DALL-E, and in return we will have a picture that we expect. And when we have finished, we have given all these requirements and everything to the model, we can ask it back. Can you please give us, ask me questions instead? What is the model lacking in information? So, and we can also do it reverse, that we just let the model ask us questions all the time. So if I have a problem, it will ask me questions about my problem and try to get the landscape of what my problem is, and then it can answer. So when I've started to learn more about ChatGPT and AIs, I find for a tester that there are a few steps we can take to enhance our testing. The first step is to have the AI act as a teacher. So this, it does really, really good. If you want to install a new program, learn a new programming language, I would not go to a video or to Google to get old information of how to do this. I will ask ChatGPT or some other AI to write me instructions of how to step by step do the installation. And usually when I do an installation, I get stuck somewhere, and then I can tell the AI that I'm stuck and what my problems are, and it will directly give me instructions of how to make a workaround for my problem. And it can also actually work as a teacher, giving quiz in the end of my process when I maybe learn this new programming language. So the AI in this first step doesn't need to do any work for us. It will just help us to be a better tester. So it's still good for us to learn more languages, to learn more tools and other stuff about testing. The next step, I would say, is that we let the AI be some kind of creator. And we will later show you a few ways how we can use this within ChatGPT to create test plans or test cases, automated test cases. It will write code and scripts. It can help us to review requirements. Basically, every step that we do as a tester, we can let ChatGPT or other tools help us with creating this material that we want. And here there are a lot of specialized tools already for doing this. We have, for example, Gretel, that is generating synthetic test data for us. So we have maybe a large set of test data that needs to be anonymized, and then Gretel will read this data and create totally new test data for us that suits our purposes for this project. And we have Apply tools that does cross-browser testing. So it does this by reading a version of our test, and then it will test it in different dimensions and see that everything is available in the different browsers. Next step, I would say, is the analyst. So in this step, the AI will review the test results. It will plan regression testing. It will also create test reports for us. And it can also optimize our testing strategy. And what I mean by that is there are tools right now that are looking up our whole scope of test cases. And maybe we make a change in one module, and we want to know which other modules is this affecting. Maybe we have modules that are surrounding this first module. We want to do some tests here, but what about these modules in the far away in the landscape of our system? And right now, I would say that most people go with a gut feeling, but with an AI, it can try to read the landscape and make a decision of what test cases you need to run to optimize your testing. And from here, I believe that AI can take a bigger step, so we can start to integrate AI within our CI/CD pipelines. And when we have different changing requirements, the AI can start updating our test case on the fly and rewrite those test cases. And if we see some kind of defect clustering in our system, it can create more test cases on that part, and also shift and create dynamic test cases for us. So we will have a more enhanced experience all the time. We will create the basic test cases together with AI, and then we'll let the AI adapt and improve our test cases over time. And finally, there are tools right now that are integrated in Slack, for example, that help us to communicate better as humans within our projects. So AI can help us as a collaborator to make better reporting and follow-ups. And then eventually AI will be integrated, as you said before, in everything that we have within testing. It will be integrated in our operating systems, and it will be integrated in our communication channels and in all our testing tools, basically. So my prediction is that in the future, we will notice that some of the tools are using these language models, but sometimes we don't really see if a tool is using AI or not, because it will be so common in most of these tools that we use today.
And this kind of future actually puts a lot more demands on us as testers, because this is when we actually start to use our testing skills for real. A lot of people associate testers with just someone who executes scripts and automates them. But testing is so much more than just writing manual test cases or automating them. It's about thinking outside the box. How can I make this system misbehave? How can I go around what is the intended use of this system? How can I make the system break? That's when your creativity really comes into play, and using an AI as a sounding board for your ideas to interact with and to help you brainstorm around ways to find new defects. That's when the true capacity of testers really comes into play, because AI can only do so much in that respect. It's you as humans who need to actually use your brain in a much more an analyzing way than you need to before without AI. So this is in no way a threat to the QA society or our jobs, because it's more enhancing us to be able to focus on what's the creative part of our work. Actually,
I would say that it will actually, the demand for testers and to have this QA role will increase, is my prediction. And
absolutely,
we still need to create those questions. We need to create questions and question also the AI that it's doing the right work, to be that person who sees that we get the right software in the end.
Because it's not only the data loss in the compression of the training of the AI that creates these hallucinations. It's also because it's a statistical probability model. Sometimes there is a non-zero chance that it chooses the wrong next word in a sentence, and thereby gives you the wrong information. So in that sense, the AI that we have today, that will never become a faultless oracle. It will always have faults, but it's up to us to find those faults and detect them before we start using that as a basis of our product development. And whenever we say ChatGPT in this context, we actually talk about any type of large language model, such as Bing or any other chat model, because this applies to all of them. When it comes to ChatGPT, it's important to check your sources, and it's Bing Chat does this for you. It always cites the sources when you ask it something. ChatGPT, if you have a paid version, with the web browsing, will also do the same thing. And there are more models that are coming, especially the models that are developed for proprietary on-prem solutions, which there are companies that do. These will always cite the files and sources where they get the information, so you can always double check the facts. So don't leave it up to chance. Make sure that you have the facts.
Great. Shall we go over to the demo time? We have some questions that are coming in. Keep writing more questions, and also give a thumbs up for the questions that you like the most. And we will go over to demo a few things about I would say like an end-to-end way of using ChatGPT for testing.
Yeah,
are you
absolutely
looking over?
So let's start with ChatGPT. Let's take, for example, I'm going to use, this is the paid version. Here you have some different options than the free version. And I'm going to use the free version because it's faster. The 3.5 model is a bit faster for demonstration purposes, this will suit us just fine. But I will also share with you some of the features of the GPT-4 version. So in that sense, it's just a quick explanation on the difference between these two. GPT-4 is actually basically the same type of model that 3.5 is based on. It's just a bunch of different models that are specialized in different areas, such as one language model, one model that does coding very well, one that's specialized in mathematics and arithmetics and logical thinking. And then you have different all kinds of different specialized models which interact with each other to provide you with a more solid answer than the 3.5 model would. So let's take, for example, let's start at the requirements phase of an application that which most of you know. Write three requirements for the messaging app in a smartphone. Use user story format. Write one each for epic level, feature, and backlog item. Okay. So here we got a few different examples, and this can be expanded upon a lot. So, for example, I want the messaging app to provide the ability to send and receive multimedia messages. Okay, let's take this requirement here. We want to add acceptance criteria for it because it's good to have that when you're basing your test cases on it. Add acceptance criteria for the backlog item, 3 of them. So it's actually using Gherkin syntax, which I like. Sometimes it doesn't reply with Gherkin, and then I can just instruct it to reply with Gherkin. Okay, so let's just take the first one here and ask it to write 10 different types of test cases to test criterion 1. Write 10 test cases to test criterion 1.
And of course, now the model is making quite easy test cases, and because we don't have the full scope of our requirements, so to make more value of this, we need to start and prime it with our requirements and to make it know everything about our question, so it gives us more value.
Exactly. But right now it's also trying some negative test cases like sending while offline, which shouldn't work, for example. And yeah, it says there should be an error message or something that the message could not be sent. Sending large media files. So it actually included negative test cases from the start. Let's ask it to write 10 more test cases which have a totally different perspective. So message loading time, message searching, end-to-end encryption verification, voice assistant integration, contact management, etc. So here we're actually getting a lot of inspiration on areas that we can focus on, and each of these single areas we can actually ask it to dive into further. And then we can start getting a really big test suite just for sending text messages. And this is where it's important to know as a tester what's useful and not. What kind of tests do we want to continuously run in our regression suites? And what kind of tests do we just run as a one-off and see whether we have stability in that sense or not? So some of these might not be interesting to run every time you release a new version of the app, but some of them will be. So it's important for you as a tester to discern. We can take help of ChatGPT to answer these questions. Of all these, which are the 5 most important ones to run every release? So these are the ones that it answered. This can be a correct answer, it can be a wrong answer. There might be other prioritizations, but you need to make that choice in the end. And ChatGPT 4 is a bit more intelligent in that sense than GPT 3.5, so it might give you different answers in this regard. So especially when you're using it for your work, we would highly suggest to use the paid version because it's so much better. All right.
Yes. Should we proceed with the questions that we have?
Yeah.
And of course, we can get back to this demo if you have any questions that are related to these demos. So we have a question from Simon. It jumped around. In what area of testing do you think AI will give the most benefits? Obviously, automated test is one, but do you think there are others?
Yes, and that's actually where we are talking about in this scenario, because using it as a sounding board to brainstorm up new types of test cases to explore your application is something that it's really good at. And especially the more information you give it about the product, when it comes to even being able to view the source code of the product, then it has a lot of power to give you detailed information about where you can expect defects to cluster and therefore focus your testing efforts on those areas. But this is just scratching the surface, to be honest, because it's actually every single part of what you spoke about, Staffan. We can use it for to deep dive into those parts and just have a 1-hour session about each of those 5 different areas. So you need to start using it to understand where you will get the most benefit from it and where you might not get as much benefit.
And I would say it depends a lot of what kind of project you're working in. As you said, if you have a project with a lot of automated testing, there could do a lot of helping. If you are in a project where you have a lot of documentation, someone asked about test plans as well, to write test plans, and you will have a lot of information about what you need to test, and then the ChatGPT or other tools can help you writing these test plans on the fly.
Exactly. So we can actually take the test plan example here and just go through write a test plan with prioritized test cases to execute with all of the above tests. So here it will give you a test plan where it gives you the entire structure of a test plan. If you're missing something, you can just ask it to add it, and the testing objectives of the plan, etc. And then different prioritization of these test cases. So this is where you and your colleagues will come into play, where what kind of test plan does your organization need? What structure do you need? What details, what kind of level of detail do you need? And here you iterate the right level together with the chatbot. It's not going to do the work for you, but it's going to do a lot of the writing for you.
Yeah, and as we said before, you can take an old test plan and prompt it and say, I want something similar, but with these requirements.
Exactly.
And we also have a question here from Mikael. What changes do you think usage of AI will bring to the testing process? Can you tell us a bit more about what pros and cons or risks you can see?
Well, that's a big question.
Yes.
The risks is that we as testers get lazy and stop exploring and stop using our testing knowledge and just leave it up to the AI. That's a big risk. That is always the risk when we start with automating any type or part of the process.
Yeah, that we feel like, okay, these are the different types of answers I can give because the AI have given us 10 different types of answers, and I only may choose between these 10 answers. But of course, there are hundreds of thousands other answers that could be relevant for a certain situation.
Exactly. So it's up to you to actually start questioning the AI and challenging it to see, okay, maybe this is just the AI will only think inside the box. It's up to you to think outside the box. What do we really need to figure out? And that's where the real engineering work comes into play, actually, and your creativity will be important.
But I would say the pros is that AI can actually help us to be more creative, to have the first steps into this creativity work and to generate different types of scenarios to different questions.
Marcel has a really good question about test data on how can we use AI to create test data. You mentioned one of the tools that actually can automatically create test data, but we could do the same thing with ChatGPT as well. Take, for example, if you want to populate a database, you can actually ask ChatGPT to write an SQL query to populate a database if you just give it the table structure and the table headings, etc., so that it knows what kind of information you want to populate it with. Say, for example, you have a social security number which you need to populate. You can actually give it the formula, or it actually knows the formula for calculating it for different countries. And it can make up fake social security numbers and connect them with fake names so that you have synthetic data, which is valid, but not real, and thereby creating a large test data suite.
Yeah, and it can also create these corner cases or these edge cases that you want to test within test data. So
absolutely,
I think this, I agree that creating test data is a big problem for testers in general. And I would say here we are on the brink of having the solution to this problem.
Absolutely. And you can actually say, ask it to include all of these normal types of tests that we do. If we talk about the type of tests recommended in the ISTQB, where we look at boundary value analyses and we look at equivalence partitioning and stuff like that to make sure that we cover all of our bases. And you can, even if ChatGPT cannot output files yet, you can actually write it to, you can actually tell it to write the code for the file, which you can then copy paste into a TXT file, which you afterwards rename into the file type that you want. So for example, if you want this in an Excel file, you can ask it to output this as a CSV format, and then just copy paste that into a file, rename it to a .csv file and open it in Excel. And there you have the data then. This can be done a lot faster when you have access to 365 Copilot if you want to do stuff in Excel, or Google Bard when they're integrated into Google Workspace. This can be done a lot faster. But having scripts that populate your databases for the testing environments, etc., can also be helpful at the moment. Some more questions.
Do you see any ethical challenges in the future when companies mainly use AI for software testing, in companies that works towards finance, insurance, for example? Yeah, that's a good question.
Well, I mean, That kind of depends on what you use the AI for, and what kind of tests you run with it. When it comes to calculating or validating insurance policies or insurance claims, for example, you still have a set of rules, like an algorithm or something that you need to follow, even if you were a human inspector. So the decision making on the ethical part should not be left up to the AI. It's still us as humans who need to handle the ethical aspects. The AI should just be a tool for executing our policy, basically.
Tobias is asking, how good does it work when you input your own requirements? How complex should these requirements be? More like a user story or more like a detailed requirement? So I would say that you could put in all of the requirements, everything. The more is better. So you should bring in the epics and all the levels of requirements that you have.
And it doesn't matter if they're engineering requirements on electronics or PCBs, or if they're all super fluffy, epic user stories. You can actually use it to rewrite bad requirements into more structured requirements, so that you're homogenizing all of your requirements to have the same look and tone.
And now also there are image recognition software within ChatGPT, for example. It will probably come to Copilot and so on. So you can put in design specifications, all the documentation basically that you have, and it will read. It could read, pictures and graphs and everything.
If any of you use Figma, there's actually a plugin that you can use in Figma that translates your Figma design to executable front-end code. So front-end developers, beware. But in basic, it's important to know what you're feeding into the chatbot. So I would not suggest taking your entire requirement specification and put it into ChatGPT, because of the security concerns around that unless you're developing a pretty generic application and you're not worried about the requirement specifications leaking. But if you're working on very sophisticated products with classified information or something like that, you should be very, very careful of which kind of service you use and what you're inputting into it and what kind of outputs that you get from it, because it's not only the inputs that will be used to train the AI, it's also its own outputs that will be used to train the AI. So be very aware of how the service you're using works. But more is better.
Yes. Tom asked, the demo works well for a generic messaging app, but how can I generate tests for a specific complex app? Is there a good way to feed this context to ChatGPT?
All right, let's look at a more difficult scenario. Let's take something that most of you might know, Spotify. I want to write advanced test cases that are outside the normal regression scope for the search feature in Spotify. It actually deals with typos or spelling errors quite well. Help me with 10 examples. Well, 5 examples, because this one is way slower. So we're now using the GPT-4 model because it's a bit more intelligent, and let's see what it gives us. Fuzzy search and typos, for example, and gives us the test procedure with expected results. Special characters and emoji.
And I would say, as we talked about different prompts before, you should get the overview of your problem and break it down into smaller pieces and break those pieces into smaller pieces as well.
Exactly.
So if you have special characters, for example, then there's a big field of special characters that you might want to test. Create maybe 20 test cases within that field. And then you can ask them for more ideas of how you should create these creative test cases. And then you will narrow it
down more one by one.
Exactly. So you can deep dive as much as you want, and the more information it has to go off, the more advanced it will be. Even when it comes to writing unit tests or something like that, it can do it as advanced as you want it to. But sometimes more advanced is not always better. We have a question if there's an LLM that we know of that is specialized in testing matters. There's not one that I know of, at least, but this will be the future where we have some more specialized language models which are focused on specific areas. So I'm not surprised if there will be such models out in the near-term future, but at the moment I'm not aware of any. There will be more and more companies which use on-prem specialized LLMs for their own purposes, which are only trained on their own data. So it's based on a general model, maybe like Llama 2 from Meta, and then they train it on specific data from the customer and or the company, and then just use it on-prem to be not as general or generic as the external ones, but more specific to the needs that the company has. I'm going to show you a quick demo of how you can use Copilot in Visual Studio Code. Here, for example, I'm just going to ask it to write a quick test case in Cypress, which is a front-end test automation tool. Right? Check.
I think this will be the last thing we demo today. I think we have 1 or 2 minutes left.
So now I'm using Copilot to generate the code, and I'm not doing anything. You can see in the corner above the clock in Windows, the icon is spinning and it's trying to generate some code. And I can just, now it's just, if I click Control Enter, it will generate 10 different solutions here on the right side, and I can choose the one that I like the best. And from here, I can start generating executable code and then start running it. But there's also like a feature, if you have the paid version of Copilot, you can use Copilot Chat to have a ChatGPT inside of Visual Studio.
We need to
wrap it up.
Wrap it up anyways.
Right now.
Thank you all so much for participating in this.
If you have any questions about this topic, don't hesitate to reach out to me and Staffan on LinkedIn or email. You can find us both on LinkedIn, easiest, I would say.
Yeah.
And then get in touch with us if you want to learn more, or if you want to learn more about how you can start using this in your company.
Thank you so much.
Thank you all. Bye.